Yo, yo, yo! That's terrible. Anyway, welcome to today's video. So today, I've got a tier list up about movie trilogies. I'm gonna go in and I'm going to put them into tiers. So we got God tier, great tier, good tier, average tier, and then shite. So let's jump into it and let's see what we've got. Okay, so as you can see, this should be working now. Alright, so as you can see, we've got Back to the Future. We've got Bad Boys trilogy, we got the Blade trilogy, we got the Captain America trilogy, the Dark Knight, the Dollars trilogy, the Godfather, the Iron Man trilogy, John Wick trilogy, Lord of the Rings trilogy, Mad Max trilogy, Matrix trilogy, Men in Black, Planet of the Apes, the Spider-Man trilogy, the Star Wars original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, The Hobbit, the Thor trilogy, the Toy Story trilogy, and the X-Men trilogy. Alright, so let's get in. Let's just get rid of these friggin' ads. We don't want them. Okay, so let's start off with what are we going to start? We'll start off with Back to the Future. Well, what we're going to do, Back to the Future it's an absolute classic. But I think there is one that isn't as good. So for me, Back to the Future is in the great tier. I don't think it's a God tier because I think the third one's not as good as the first two. And I think that hinders it. Because when you're talking about trilogy, you've got to take all three of them in. So that's for me. Bad Boys for Life. No, Bad Boys trilogy. Look, entertaining, fun. But I think the first two, story-wise, aren't that good. Where the third one is really good story and action. I think the third one's the best one out of them all. For me, Bad Boys, I think, is in the average one. It is good entertainment, fun, but I think it lacks in certain areas. That's just my opinion. The Blade trilogy. Blade 2 is awesome. The first one's decent. The third one, absolutely shite. For me, the Blade trilogy goes an average because the last one, instead of it being good, the last one brings it right down. Because the last one is, you can't watch the last one. It's that freaking bad. The Captain America trilogy. I think all these movies are great. I think Civil War is fantastic. I think Winter Soldier is great as well. And I think the first Captain America is one of the most underrated comic book films of all time, and I think it's quite good as well. So for me, I have to put it in the great. The Captain America trilogy for me is in the great tier. I think there's no weak links in this that can drop it down any further for me. The Dark Knight trilogy. Look, this may be a controversial one. I don't think the Dark Knight trilogy is in God tier. When we're talking God tier, we're talking perfection, basically. We are talking absolute peak perfection. For me, The Dark Knight Rises just hinders it. I think it's a step down from The Dark Knight and Batman Begins. And I've got to just put it in the great tier. I can't put the Dark Knight trilogy in God because of the third film. I think the third film's just, it lacks. It's not... After you watch the first one, it's a fantastic origin story, and then you get The Dark Knight with Joker. It's just absolutely fantastic, and then The Dark Knight Rises, unfortunately, just brings it down for me. So that could be a controversial one. The Dollars trilogy, which is the Clint Eastwood one. So you got The Good, Bad, Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, and I forget the last one. What's the other one? There's this... I forget. But look, this I used to watch with my granddad before he passed away. I used to watch this stuff with him all the time. It is a fantastic Western film. These are classic Western films. They are great. They are good. They're fantastic. The only problem is they're quite long and there's not a lot of dialogue in there. So if you can bear that, you enjoy it. I think they're good. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. Like it's like pushing God. But I think they are good films. They can be a bit long and dragged out sometimes. The Godfather trilogy. Do I need to say more? It's in the name. It's God. The Godfather is just a God. It's a God trilogy. there's not, that is like, most people will probably consider the Godfather to be the best trilogy of all time, to be the best movies of all time. I mean, they're God tier. They are absolute God tier. I don't care what anyone says. They are near perfection. They are basically perfection. That's why they're in the God tier. The Iron Man trilogy. The first Iron Man, I think, is good. It's great, or basically. Iron Man 2, it's not the worst movie, but I think it's average. And Iron Man 3, I think, is average as well. So, for me, the Iron Man trilogy, I think is average. Because it's got 2 average films or only 1 good film. That's like the next level up. Otherwise, it's just average for me. The John Wick. Look, I love John Wick. I think it's absolutely fun, fantastic. It is great. I'm going to put it in the good. I'm going to put it good because I think the second one is a bit of a step down from the first one and the third one. I think the second one is a bit step down, and that's just lacking it from going to great. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's the best modern day action trilogy. I think it is absolutely fantastic, and I love watching them. But if I'm realistic and I'm actually going to go in and look at all the movies, I think number 2 brings it down from great to good. The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Here we go, here we go. Some people are going to kill me for this. Most people would have Lord of the Rings in the God tier. For me, Lord of the Rings goes in great. I don't think it's God tier. Look, I think it is, they are masterpiece of films. But the length does hurt it, I think. Sometimes you got to sit down and you got to like basically plan your day out to watch these because they're so long. They are good. They are good films. Don't get me wrong. And I wouldn't, if some people most people put it in God tier and think it is one of the best. But for me, I just think it drags out a bit too much. And yeah, I just think it's great. I don't have it as near perfection. Mad Max. Good. I think it's a good trilogy. The third one's not so good. Mad Max 2 is absolutely freaking good. The first one's decent, but I just think they're good. I don't think they are great or anything. I think number 2 is great, but I think the other 2, well, third is average and the first one is good. So for me, it's got a slot in the good tier. Alright, so we got the Matrix trilogy. I tell you what, average. The first one is cracker. The next 2, yeah. The third one's pretty unforgettable. The second one's, it's alright. But the first one I think is good. But yeah, average for me for the Matrix. I mean, most people probably have it higher, but hey, well, it is what it is. Men in Black trilogy. Average. I think the first one is great. I love the first one. I think the second one and the third one, they lack. I think they lack a bit. I mean, it didn't capture the same essence as the first one did. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. Planet of the Apes. So this is that new one. And for me, I would put it in the great tier. I would put Planet of the Apes in the great tier. I think the remake is really, really good. I think the way that they captured Caesar as a character was phenomenal. I think he's just one of those characters that there's so much layers to him. And I thoroughly enjoy him. And I mean, I love the storyline of all 3, how they build up to that climatic. Obviously, we didn't get the big battle, but I think that's what stops it from going in God tier. The Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi trilogy. Look, Spider-Man 1 and 2 are God movies in my opinion. They are God tier movies. Spider-Man 3 is in the shite tier. So, if I'm going to be fair, it pains me to do this, but I got to put it in the good. But do 2 gods make it great? That's the question. Do 2 God movies push Spider-Man into the great, or does one bad shite movie really bring it down to good? I think because how bad the third one is, I think it goes in good instead of great. It pains me to do that. It actually pains me, but it is what it is. The original trilogy for Star Wars, there's no debate. It's God. It's God tier. I think it's the best trilogy of all time. I think they're the best movies of all time. I think they're perfection. With The Godfather, they're perfection as well. Star Wars, the prequel trilogy. Look, I love Revenge of the Sith. It is like my second or... It's the one I watch the most, but I think it's like my second favourite behind Empire. 2 and 1 though, I don't think are that good. So I gotta, like they're average in my opinion. So I gotta put the Star Wars prequel trilogy in good. The sequel, look, I have to put the sequel of Star Wars in average. I love Force Awakens. I did like The Rise of Skywalker. I didn't like Last Jedi. The only problem I have that I can't put it any higher is because there was no direction. There was no direction whatsoever in this sequel trilogy. It was all over the place. You got directors coming in, writing the script before the other one's done. And it's just a fucking complete mess. Lucasfilm really fucked it up. And for me, that's why I've got it in average. Because, yeah. The Hobbit. Look, for me... I'm putting it in the shite tier. I'm not a big fan of The Hobbit. Not a big fan at all by The Hobbit. I just... Yeah, once I watched them once, I just didn't really want to watch them again. I don't know, there's just... The Hobbit to me didn't capture the Lord of the Rings. It didn't capture that. And I think it was dragged out. The story was way dragged out. And I just... Yeah, it wasn't for me, in my opinion. The Thor trilogy. Look, I think Thor is fantastic. I think Ragnarok is absolutely outstanding. Thor 2, again, same with Iron Man 2, not very good. So, I gotta put it in the good tier. For me, it's in the good tier. I mean, you've got Ragnarok, which I think is a god movie. You got Thor, which I think is great, and you got Dark World, which I think is in average. So it goes there. Toy Story, God tier. I mean, they are near perfection. Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 are near perfection. They're God movies. They are God movies through and through. The X-Men trilogy. Look, X-Men 1 and 2 are some of the best comic book films of all time. They are the catalyst for where we are now in the MCU and DC movies and all the comic book films. These are the catalysts. These are the founding fathers that really pushed on. The third one sucks. It is shite. It is terrible. But the other two are God. So does that mean... I've already done it for the Spider-Man one, so that means they've got to go into the good tier. Because I did it for Spider-Man. 2 God tier movies and 1 shite movie puts it there. So there you go. That's my tier list. Look, I'll leave a link in the below to this tier list so you guys can do yours as well. And if you want, you can find me on the social media. Drop in what you think. Let me know what you think trilogies are. Obviously, there's some trilogies that aren't here. Let me know. And I'll respond and tell you where I would put those ones that you have suggested. If you want more tier lists like this on movies and stuff like that, I mean, we're all going to be in quarantine anyway, so let me know, and I'm happy to do these if you guys like it. Give us a thumbs up, you know, subscribe if you want to, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have yourselves a lovely day, and stay safe, and stay indoors. Peace out.